I'm sure a lot of you have heard recently about the explosion in generative AI, and there's a lot of hype about it, and there's a lot of unclear stories about it, about the future of it, and how useful it actually is to our society and to the way we function as human beings. And I'll just give a couple examples of this. Oh, I think I accidentally turned off my video. There we go. I'll give a couple examples of this. The first most prominent example you've probably heard of is ChatGPT. And ChatGPT is a large language model that is essentially just giving you text suggestions based on word associations that it's found in a large corpus of text that it's been trained on. And this corpus of text has been trained with something like 100 billion parameters. So it's a very well-researched and thoroughly developed model. And that's why the answers it gives are so detailed and sound like a human. But frankly, when I started using ChatGPT, I thought it was a little bit uninspiring and a little bit boring. For example, in my club, when we asked it to give us advice on how to emphasize teamwork within our executive leadership team, the advice it gave was to remind everyone that we're working toward a common goal, which seems pretty straightforward and pretty uninspiring and not particularly innovative. So I read a little bit more about these generative AI models. And one thing that also is pretty common today to hear about are these image generation models. So these are examples from DALL-E and Stable Diffusion, which are text-to-image generation models. So you feed it some textual prompt, and then based on that, it will give you an image or some kind of stylized graphic of the thing that you're asking it to generate. And this got me a little bit more interested in it. And as I started reading more and more about different types of generative AI models, one thing that really got me interested is this idea of AI in architecture. This is a tool called Midjourney, and it's essentially what I like to call an AI intern for architects. The way that Midjourney works is that you can feed in a prompt, like a textual prompt that describes some kind of architectural building or some kind of structure. And based on its training data, which is essentially just a corpus of buildings, structures, images from all kinds of sources about different types of architecture, this model will generate a fictitious structure that fulfills like the parameters you've told it to design. And these are not real structures. So it's not like it's just taking images from Google and then just putting them on your screen. These are entirely self-generated designs that it's taken inspiration from existing architectural designs. One thing that's really cool about Midjourney is that if you think about a normal architecture studio, they have a lot of clients who have very specific requests. For example, they might say, I want black marble in my kitchen, or I want ceiling to floor windows in my living room. And you can go manually through Google Images and search for exact house designs that fulfill all these criteria, but that could take a very long time. So instead, a tool like this allows architects to iterate really quickly and just show their clients, here's an example of something that might fit your interest. Do you think this is what you want, or would you like to change it a little bit? Now, what I thought was really cool about this is that the images generated by Midjourney, like I said, are not just images taken from existing architectural styles or even images. It actually does a very good job of blending different architectural styles from different architects, and it still is able to synthesize them into something that looks like it could be real, right? These aren't just fictitious landscapes that look like they're just completely sci-fi. You could theoretically imagine some of these being constructed given some creative liberties. One thing that's really cool too is how detailed the prompts can be to generate these sorts of buildings. For example, here you can see the prompt is a photorealistic rendering of an architectural open-air pavilion, asymmetrical double-barrel vault structure with arches made of terracotta and clay, modular component assembly, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's amazing how much detail you can provide this model and how much detail it's able to incorporate from that text into the actual image it generates. Because something like this could maybe never exist. Maybe there's never been a building that's created like this with all of these features that are listed, but it's still able to take what it knows about existing architectural styles and materials and synthesize an image that seems to at least conform to these ideas. And I thought this was very interesting because it seems like we've sort of been reversing the idea of how technology can help humans, because now we're looking to technology to propose ideas that don't exist yet. And I think a lot of the concern around generative AI models has been, okay, if we have these models that are generating text for us, that are generating images, that are generating paintings or even architectural landscapes, is this just going to replace the role of humans in this whole process? And one of the articles I was reading about this, which is a Bloomberg article, was making a very good point that AI can't really do all of the work when it comes to these architectural models using Midjourney. There still is actually a lot of work that's left to the humans to do. And it's actually, the way it works is AI only makes it better for the humans to focus their own talents on the things that they should be focusing on. What do I mean by that? Well, I'm saying that even if you have these pictures or these fictitious landscapes of what a building might look like, it's ultimately up to the human architect to translate those visual ideas into something that's actually a structure. Because it's only the humans who will have ideas about what materials can realistically be used given a certain budget, or what structures are more structurally sound, or let's say seismically proofed for an environment like California. All of these other extraneous factors are really hard to put into a model like Midjourney. So it's better off for architects to let Midjourney take care of this ideation process and let themselves take care of the actual implementation details of how to design these structures. Another really interesting thing about this is that even if you have these very complicated AI models, you need to train humans in order to design efficient and specific prompts to extract these images from Midjourney. So there's a whole level of training that is still up to the humans to do in terms of understanding how to best utilize these models to create the most artistically innovative and cutting edge designs for these buildings. And like I was saying earlier, what really got me interested in all of this is that we're sort of reversing the paradigm for technology improvements. So I'll give a short explanation of how I think traditionally we've thought of technology. And the analogy I'll use here is with the printing press. So before the printing press, right? Let's say someone wanted to write a book. They would have some kind of idea. They'd have a brainstorming session about what they'd want to write. And then they'd go through this process of obviously writing on paper the ideas that they have, and then they would translate these into books. But for every book or every page they write, they'd have to rewrite it on a new piece of paper because there wasn't any automation or any parallelism in the way that they generated these texts. So the time sink was essentially the implementation process. It was very tiring and unproductive because there's no point for a human to be spending all of their time writing instead of ideating about what to write. So what did the printing press do? Well, the printing press just solved that problem by shifting the time resources from implementation back to ideation. So instead of time being a sink for the human, it became a source of creativity for the human because then they could spend most of their time thinking about what to write. Okay, so this is how technology has traditionally worked, right? It's always helped us implement things faster so we can focus on thinking about what to implement more. But all of this work with generative AI has actually enabled us to shift the focus from humans from ideation back to implementation. So we're allowing AI to help us ideate faster and iterate through different ideas more quickly and efficiently, but we're freeing up our own mind and our own mental stamina, let's say, to implement these ideas and use our creative talents in other places. So it's like technology is now occupying both ends of the stack. We obviously have software tools that help us design buildings like CAD tools or 3D printing tools. And now we also have technology tools that give us ideas on what to design. And it seems like humans are now more focused in this middle zone where they can concentrate their talents. So that's like a little summary of what I think the state of generative AI is and how it can be applied in this new paradigm of technology. And just to wrap this up, I want to give one other example other than architecture where I think this could be used pretty conveniently. If you look at a lot of car companies or a lot of car shows like the Geneva Car Show, the LA Car Show, etc., they bring all these concept cars to these car shows. And these concept cars look almost useless because they're extremely exaggerated designs that are extremely expensive. And you don't really imagine ever seeing something like this on the road today. But what's useful about these concept cars is that companies use them as a test bed to prototype new technologies. So they might make a new technology just for the purpose of a concept car, purposely make the design super radical and super controversial just for the public to get a perception of it and for the companies to get the public's feedback. Then after that, the company will obviously iterate on this design and make something that's actually safe for the road and usable and feasible for passenger traffic. But I think that this is one example where if you have a generative AI model that can generate images of cars or designs for cars that fulfill some criteria that, say, a marketing department wants to implement, right, in their next generation of cars, then that really speeds up this iteration process for companies to get these concepts out to market quicker and then iterate on them even more so that they can improve on those designs when they finally send them out to the public. And it's not like these concept cars are never coming out to the road. The one on the right here, the Porsche Mission E-Electric concept, this is back in 2019 when they launched it. And initially everyone was like, this is ridiculous. It's never going to exist on the road. But today the Porsche Taycan is based on this exact same concept. And that's a very popular selling car today. So it's definitely true that ideating faster with these concepts could have very beneficial implications for these companies, whether it's for architecture design houses or for automotive design houses like car companies. Overall, I think it's a very interesting space with a lot of different challenges, but a lot of potential. And it's exciting to see how it's all unveiling in front of us. Thanks.